Friends, it's Ranger Russ at the Meigs Point Nature Center. Really special program today. We're going to do another one of my favorite animals. Before we get into the animal, I'm going to ask everybody, if you have questions, you can put them up anytime. And I'm going to ask you to put up where you're sending us a message from, because I really like to see all the different people that are saying hi to me today. So as we go along, if you have questions, anytime you want. I want to remind everybody, the Meigs Point Nature Center is located here in Connecticut, and all the animals that we have, all the programs that we do from the Nature Center are related to Connecticut. So it may be an animal that's native to here, or an animal that's found here in Connecticut, or a plant, or a habitat that you can find here at Hammonasset or in the state of Connecticut. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go. Now, today's program, it's not a rerun, but it's the same animal I did in the past, and that's because we have a really special moment in the life of our lobster. We're going to be talking about the lobster again, and this really special thing, really cool thing just happened yesterday, so you're going to have to take a look. Our lobster molted. And if you remember from the first time we did lobsters, you can see that program at meigspointnaturecenter.org in the Virtual Learning Center or on the Meigs Point Nature Center YouTube channel. We'll talk about molting more though, because this lobster just molted. So this is the molt. This is not a dead lobster. This is the molt of a lobster. Okay? So it shed out this exoskeleton. Remember, it's got an external skeleton, that armor, that nice hard armor. It opened up like this, okay? It slid its body out. It pulled its claws out. And remember, it only had one claw, okay? We'll take a look in a second and see what it looks like now. It pulls its abdomen out. Its whole body comes out from the tail all the way up, comes out of the lobster, okay? So now you've got the exoskeleton. All that's left inside, if you look inside here, there's a little bit of some gill here and not a whole lot else. This is an empty exoskeleton. Now, lobsters will molt. The younger lobsters molt a lot. They'll molt 4 or 5 times a year. And remember, when they start out, when they leave their mother, they start out as plankton. So they start out as eggs inside the mother, and they will stay 9 to 12 months as eggs. Then the mother secretes them out of her body, and she attaches them to her swimmerets. This is a male, but he also has swimmerets. All these swimmerets, the mother will attach them there, and they will stay attached there for another 9 to 12 months. So it could be 2 years from an egg till it emerges out as plankton, a tiny swimming animal. When it starts out, it's going to molt a lot. It's going to shed that exoskeleton, again, 3 or 4 times a year while it's swimming around. Eventually, it's going to settle to the ground. It's going to molt or the bottom of the water, not the ground, and it's going to molt and start to look like the lobster that we think of. When they're plankton, they don't look like the lobsters that we see here, okay? They look a little more like a shrimp swimming around. As they start to grow and get bigger, their exoskeleton doesn't grow. So this is external armor. It doesn't grow. So they're going to molt a couple of times a year as they get larger and larger. Eventually, they're going to slow down, and they may only molt once a year, or once every 2 years, or once every 5 years. Molting is dependent on the amount of food that they're able to get. It takes a lot of energy to molt, and if they don't have enough energy, then they can't molt, which means they can't grow larger. So keep that in mind. The largest lobster ever was 44 pounds. In 1977, they caught a 44-pound lobster off of Nova Scotia. So that's a really big, big lobster. So this is our lobster after it molted. You can see, let's do this. Let's put the molt right in front. Okay. So now you can see how much larger the lobster is after it molted. Its claw, you can see this claw has begun to grow back. It's quite a bit bigger. Here, there's nothing. There's no claw at all. So now you've got a larger claw. This is the claw that was existing. Now I can reach in here okay because it just molted. This is the hard skin. The skin underneath is soft. So this is a little bit soft and squishy. If it tried to pinch me, its claw would bend around my finger because it's too soft right now. So it can't defend itself. It can't get any food. The only way it's going to eat is when this exoskeleton, when this skin hardens into an exoskeleton. So right now it's just got a thin layer of skin that's soft. As that hardens into an exoskeleton, it will be able to start to eat and protect itself. So in the wild, when they molt, they're really looking for a sheltered place to hide until they're strong enough or they're hard enough to go and eat something. All right, now if we turn it a little bit, I want to show you, look at this is the head here. Look at how much larger that is. Now, lobsters actually have two stomachs. They have a stomach up here in the head area, and then they have a stomach back here. I always find that fascinating when animals have more than one stomach. Anybody out there know what other animals have more than one stomach? I have seen a blue and yellow orange lobster in various aquariums, like Woods Hole. That is very cool. So the blue lobsters are actually more common. The yellow lobster is more rare than the blue lobster. Blue lobsters occur like 1 in every 2 million lobsters will be pure blue. And the yellow lobster or the orange lobster, sometimes they're more orangey than yellow, they occur 1 in every 30 million. So the yellow lobster is a lot more rare than the blue lobster. And sometimes you get strange patterns in the lobster where one side is blue and one side is yellow. It's really bizarre how colorful the lobsters can be sometime. I've seen the huge one at Woods Hole. Very cool. So there are lots of lobsters out in the world. There are about 30 species of clawed lobster. That's our lobster. It has these big claws. And then there are about 45 species of spiny or rock lobsters that don't have these really large claws. If you've seen in the aquariums and things, sometimes you'll see a spiny lobster, and it looks a lot like this except without the large claws. Okay? So they are eating just about anything that they can get. Now, right now, again, it's soft, so it's not able to eat. But it will eat fish, it will eat crabs, smaller crustaceans, it will scavenge. They're a lot less scavengers than we originally thought. It used to be thought that they were just scavengers, but no, they really will eat. They are predators, and they will eat lots of shellfish. So when the claw is nice and hard, they can actually crush the shells of a shellfish. How long does it take for the shell to harden? Great question, and that really depends on the size of the lobster. So for this lobster, it just molted yesterday. I would say by next week, it should be hard enough that the lobster can eat. It hardens, it's not very quick, it hardens over time. And the smaller they are, the faster they seem to harden. All right, do we have any other questions up here? To dry my hands a little bit so I can scroll and see. Again, if you guys have any questions, anytime, I love the questions. Looks like a couple of you have seen the lobster at Woods Hole, which is pretty neat. Okay, so we've talked about adaptation with a few different animals. The lobster has really adapted to live in the deeper water. And if you saw the first program, I talked about how they migrate. They will migrate out into the deep waters of the ocean for the winter, come back into the shallower waters. So a lot of times they're in dark areas. And that's why these antennae are really well adapted. This helps them to find their way around if in dark or murky water, if there's lots of turbidity in the water, if it's really cloudy, then they're going to be able to feel their way around with their antenna. And you can see here, he has, this antenna is broken off and this one's pretty well intact. Here, both antennae are nice and long. Actually, one of them's a little bit shorter, so it looks like it did break a little bit or didn't fully grow. So this one is a little shorter than this one on the actual lobster here. Another adaptation that they have, because they have a hard exoskeleton, their body is not soft and flexible like ours, it can extend its eyes on stalks up and see things coming in behind it. So it can actually turn its head and sort of look what's behind it. How do you get the rubber bands on the claws? Great question, and we're not going to put the rubber band on until the shell hardens. So once the shell hardens, I'll just grab its claw, hold it closed, and put a rubber band on it. And we'll even do it with the smaller claw here, but we don't want to use a very strong rubber band because we don't want it to change the shape of the claw. Just enough so that it doesn't eat everything in the touch tank, because it will eat everything. I'm sorry, the observation tank. Everything in the observation tank. This is only a touch tank when we're doing programs. Most of the time we just call it an observation tank because we don't want people's hands in there all the time. All right, any other questions? No, last one is about the claws. So I told you about how they're adapted for their environment. Let's talk a little bit about where they fit in a food chain. So we did a whole program on food chains. Lobsters actually fit in multiple places in a food chain as they get larger. So a very small planktonic lobster that's swimming through the water is going to be eaten by everything. That's really the bottom of the food chain. As they get larger, then they get higher up in the food chain. And the larger they are, the higher they are in the food chain. And actually, lobsters are one of those animals that are cannibals. A large lobster will eat a smaller lobster. So you do have to watch out for that. Are they related? I think you're asking if the clawed lobsters are related to the spiny or rock lobsters. And yes, they are related. Oh, to spiders. Yeah, they are. I'm not sure. I got to go back on my chain of evolutionary chain. But yes, they are. I don't remember where the connection was. But yes. Arthropod, I think. They're more closely related to like scorpions and spiders than they are to insects. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, so again, as they get larger, so a really big lobster, that's getting up near the top of the food chain. There's not a lot of things that will eat the big lobsters. It's not the top of the food chain because a shark might eat them, dolphins eat them, and seals will eat them. So they're not the top of the food chain, but they get higher up the food chain as they get larger. Theoretically, lobsters can live practically forever. What really determines how long a lobster lives is how much energy they're able to get, how much food they're able to get, because that determines whether they're able to molt or not. So it takes a lot of energy for this lobster to shed this exoskeleton and grow larger and have this new skin harden into the exoskeleton. And many times they will eat parts of this exoskeleton. This one has not eaten any part of his exoskeleton. It's been in with him for a couple of days. So he's really not interested in eating it. But there's a lot of energy that goes into this molting and growing process. So eventually, they say that they get to be 80 years for our lobster in the wild. Eventually, they're not going to be able to molt. They're not going to have enough energy to do that, and then they're not going to live any longer than that. So that's really what determines how long and how old lobsters get. Now, if you watch our other program, we're going to call it Part 1 of the lobster, I show him swimming around the touch tank a little bit, and they can swim up to 12 miles an hour. They're going to swim backwards, but when they're walking, when they're migrating, they walk on the bottom, and they're going to walk forward. So they've got different modes of transportation. If they're threatened and scared, then they swim backwards, and that's when they're really fast. Otherwise, they're going to walk. And if you remember from the other program, they walk when they're migrating. They go over 100 miles a day to migrate. All right, do we have any other questions? How do you know when it's going to molt, or can you tell when it's going to molt? So we can't really tell when they're going to molt, and I wish that we could. We'd try and give it a little more food or something, just so it has the energy to successfully molt. But it really depends on how much food they're getting and how much larger they're able to grow. So we don't really know when it's going to molt. This lobster, this is actually the second time that this lobster has molted. And this is the first lobster I've ever had that's molted twice in captivity. And it molted, it hasn't even been a year since the last time it molted. So that's really cool that it's able to do that. But I do wish we could tell. Do you feed them when they're soft? So when it's soft, they're not able to eat. And if you remember, go back and watch our first program, I talk about how they eat. Because they don't have any rigid parts of their body, their entire body is soft, he's not able to eat anything until his shell hardens up, and then he'll be able to eat. So no food until he's done with the molt. Okay, I want to let everybody know about the Great Backyard Pursuit. You can look at the activities and events. If you go to the DEEP's main page, you can search for Great Backyard Pursuit. There's a connection from our website. If you go to the Virtual Learning Center, you can connect to the Great Backyard Pursuit, the Kellogg Environmental Center, Goodwin Conservation Center, and Dinosaur State Park. All have great activities, videos, all sorts of fun things that you can do, you can learn. Let's not stop learning. Just because schools are getting out, I hope that you all continue to learn about science and nature and the environment for the whole summer. So we'll continue to do the programs. As soon as we open the building, I hope that you all come down and visit the Nature Center. I think it would be really cool to see all the people who have been messaging me all of this time. I would appreciate seeing and meeting all of you in person. So I think that would be pretty cool if you could do that. Again, meigspointnaturecenter.org's Virtual Learning Center, lots of things there. You can also go to YouTube, Meigs Point Nature Center's YouTube channel, and learn a lot more from the past videos and some other videos that are only on the YouTube channel. So there are a few things that are only on YouTube. And so this afternoon, 2 o'clock, we'll be doing another program. It looks like we've got lots of storms coming through, so I'm going to have to adjust my program from an outside program to an inside program, and we'll see what happens for that. And then tomorrow, we'll do a program in the morning, but at 2 o'clock, I'm looking at visiting Dinosaur State Park. They have a beautiful trail there, and I'm going to explore their wetlands. So they have a great wetlands, sort of a boardwalk bridge location that I really want to see what they have up there for their wetlands. So that's going to be tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And the morning program, we're going to keep that a surprise for all of you. So we'll probably focus, it'll be about an animal, but that's all I'm going to tell you for today. All right, I hope everyone is continuing to enjoy these programs. I'm still having a great time doing them. I really hope, visit Meigs Point Nature Center's Virtual Learning Center. We've got sort of a blog post going up with a different animal every day, and Those are really interesting to read. I haven't been able to read all of them, but every day we get a new animal, and we'll be putting up some plants. Some of our plant experts will be putting up some information there as well. So plenty of things to learn about. I hope that you're all having fun. I'm enjoying it, and I will see you this afternoon at 2 o'clock.